see, just checking the amount of commissioners. So it looks like we do have a quorum of at least 7 commissioners. Let's see, one. Okay, great. So yes, looks like we do have quorum. Now, for the technology, if members would like to speak, just make sure you unmute or use the chat box as well to inform us that you would like to speak. That way we can make sure we get to everyone. Now, the OST team will unmute and notify individuals of when they can speak. If all commissioners are unmuted for conversations, just go ahead and mute yourself when you're not speaking so we can reduce background noise. When making or seconding a motion, please make sure to identify yourselves clearly so that we can make sure we record everything for the minutes. And all votes will be recorded in the chat box. So instead of asking everyone directly, to say your names and vote, please just go ahead and enter your vote, whether it's a yay or nay or abstaining, in that chat box so that we can document them. Okay, thank you. Now, it looks like for today we do not have any public comments. We can move straight into quorum. So first we just need to take roll call for the attendance, okay? So you can just, if you're here, go ahead and make sure to enter in the chat box so we can record it. So, okay. Commissioner Berkey? Let's see. Not here? Okay. Oh, I see you're on the.
I
Yep.
thought you
Yes.
said put it in the chat. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah. I see you on there. Okay.
Present.
Thank you. And Commissioner Brown or Commissioner Cliff? Looks like they're not here in the box. Okay. Commissioner Garrido?
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Harding? Okay. Commissioner Hill? Okay. Thank you. Hello. Let's see, Vice Chairman Holland? Got him. Okay, looks like he's not here today. Commissioner Jordan? Okay. Commissioner O'Neill?
Present.
Thank you. And I see Commissioner Garrido there. Hello. Let's see. All right. And let's see, Commissioner Jordan. Looks like not here. Commissioner O'Neill. Yep. Okay. Great. Commissioner Peeler. Looks like she's here on the. Thank you very much. Okay. Commissioner Siegel. Okay. Looks like she's not here just yet. Commissioner Spector.
Present.
Thank you. And Commissioner Taylor. Okay. Looks like he's not on today. Okay, and I know Mila's here, so thank you very much. Okay, so it looks like that's quorum. All right. So the first thing is to vote on the agenda. So if commissioners can review the agenda and then whenever we're ready, make a motion to approve that, we can move forward. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to approve from Commissioner Spector. Does anyone second the motion?
Second.
Thank you. Now, who was that?
Go ahead. This was Margot Berkey. Hi.
Thank you. Hey. Okay. Great. Okay. Excellent. Okay, great. And is there any discussion on the agenda? Okay, great. So if we can go ahead and use the chat box to vote, all the votes will be recorded in the chat box. So those who approve the agenda, please approve in the chat box. Okay. Does everyone approve the agenda? Or are there any that oppose? Okay, great. Okay, so it looks like the agenda is approved. Okay, so it looks like the motion carries with unanimous votes. Now, the next item is a draft version of the minutes. Are there any changes or revisions to the minutes? Okay, if no changes, can we get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve?
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Spector. So anyone second Commissioner Spector's motion to approve the minutes?
I second.
Thank you, Commissioner Garrido. Okay. All right, so once again, we're going to use the chat box to vote. So those who approve, please go ahead and just note that in the chat. Thank you. Great, thank you. Okay. Looks like we're still waiting on a few more votes. Okay. Are there any who would like to oppose the minutes? Okay, so it looks like the minutes are unanimously approved. Thank you. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the updates from the Office of Out-of-School Time Grants and Youth Outcomes. So Mila, if you're ready, would you like to provide those?
Sorry about that. I have trouble unmuting apparently on my laptop,
Thank you, no problem. No problem.
but at least I got to log in today. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide an update from the office. We will start with the OST team. So last time we mentioned we were still hiring the grant management specialist. We have finalized and they have both started. So we would like to welcome Malik Lang and Ashley Grant. Ashley is here today and she can provide just a quick update and introduction to yourself. Ashley, can you say hi and provide just a quick update about yourself?
Thank you, Mila. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ashley Grant. I'm the newest team member to the OST team, more specifically the grants management team. I worked with the district for roughly about 5 years through various agencies. I'm excited to be here and I'm excited to be working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. And so what you see on the screen is the full list of the OST team and the setup. So we are fully staffed from the OST team. So we're excited that we are working on all of the changes that had happened in FY21 and look forward to the additional work that we will be doing in FY22 that we will talk about shortly. Our first update is related to the program finder. So the OST team, we heard some feedback from DC Action for Children and Pay related to the program finder and the need to get information out to families and students. And so based on some information and feedback from the two organizations who heard from parents and providers, we added additional filters. Specifically, we want to highlight the top right-hand corner where you see select language. It will now translate the page for anyone who needs the translation services. So that is a new feature just in case someone is not using Google as their browser, will allow them to have the page translated. The second one is the bottom of the screen of the program finder. You'll see the services drop-down tab. That tab will allow individuals to find programming that serves English as a second language and students with disabilities. So there's a drop down that has additional features for families who are looking for some specific services. And then the newest, another new item is the dates. So we know this year some programming may happen between certain dates, or families are looking for programming during gap weeks. And so they can attempt to find programming that is operating during that time. So there are a lot of changes with the program finder. So Alex on the team is busy trying to do outreach in order to make sure providers are adding information into the program finder. So all of our grantees are required to, based off the database, it automatically feeds into the program finder. We are now just asking and continue to do outreach to additional programs that may be looking for additional enrollment in the program. So that is one update that the data team and the outreach team has been doing related to the program finder. I'm going to pass it to Kevin to provide a quick update related to the Institute for Youth Development.
Thank you, Mila. Good evening, everyone. Just a real quick update from the Institute. The year-to-date hosted events thus far, and this is as of yesterday, is now at 70 events for the year. And we are currently at 75% of our annual goal, which is good to see. And we're definitely on track to meet that goal for the end of our fiscal year. And currently our year-to-date served is 485 unduplicated attendees. We're right about at 64% of annual goals, but I'm excited to know that we've got lots of training requests coming in from many of our grantees for summer training. So I'm looking forward to that number being boosted as well. For our site visits, we are now at completed 85% of all school year grantee program sites for the year. Just a few outstanding site visits, and we should be done hopefully in the next couple weeks. And we are definitely preparing right now to turn right around and begin our summer site visits as well. So more information in our next commission meeting in regards to those. And that's it from the Institute. Thanks, Mila.
Thanks, Kevin. And then we will have Bonia provide an update on grants.
Thanks, Mila. So yes, I will provide an update for our school year grants. Our grant report is due, the second grant report is due by June 30th, 2021. We also wanted to provide an update on our summer grants competitions. So as it pertains to the 2021 Summer Strong DC Grant Competition, there were 26 organizations awarded, and the grant's total amount was for $2,317,199. For 2021 Summer Strong DC, the small nonprofit grant competition, 9 organizations were awarded, and that totaled $210,000. And for our 2021 Summer Strong Coordinating Entity Grant Competition, there were 4 organizations awarded, and those grant awards totaled $400,000. So we are rounding out school year programming and preparing and ramping up for summer programming. So those are the updates and the overview for you for our summer grants.
Thanks, Vania. Commissioners, do you have any questions based on the current updates before we jump into the next section, which is related to the FY22 budget? Okay, not hearing anyone, I will continue. So starting with FY22, Mayor Bowser this morning released her FY22 budget, her proposed budget. So it is now in the hands of council to review the budget. She's making a large investment in education. I can't respond to everything in the education, but I'll just highlight some big things in here. So on education, some big things to highlight is the $8 million in mental health services to DC public schools and DC charter schools. Also the investment of $13 million for high impact tutoring on an evidence-based approach that Deputy Mayor Kine has talked about for several months. An investment in $5.6 million to increase access to summer programming and academic enrichment. And I'll talk a little bit about that specifically to the OST office. And then $68 million to increase access to childcare and provide incentives and scholarships. So a large increase and a large investment in childcare that we want to highlight. We also did additional investments within the education cluster related to workforce. I actually just want to highlight the whole investment in high school and then middle school. For this commission, I think what might be interesting is the SYP increase of $3 million and the $6.9 million for senior year. So these are big investments happening in the workforce for our middle school and high school work-based learning. And then also in the education sector, making some investments related to safe passage, school transit, and if you see it, there is a mention of out-of-school time activities for youth. I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. And then some other investments across the libraries and DPR, rec centers, and some other capital improvements related. Related to safe passage, the OST office will be partnering across the DME to support safe passage with assuming the proposed budget is approved. Our office and our grants team in particular, yes, a lot of these would be the American Rescue Plan funds. So a lot of this is federal funding, Commissioner Spector and Peeler related to the funding. So a lot of the budget for the next few years is related largely with the federal funds. For the OST office related to safe passage, if the approved budget moves forward, the OST office will help and manage a grant program for Man the Block. So that is a safe passage initiative. The grants will be awarded to CBOs or community-based organizations to hire individuals from the community to help man the block in certain neighborhoods in the 22 safe passage areas, and also to create a program like an after-school program for those individuals to develop relationship with kids at the school. So there's a plan to help man the block and create a program where they can also develop relationships with the students after school in order to make sure there are safe routes to and after school from some of these communities, so in 22 communities. Also part of the safe passage work, the OST team, actually the Institute team will be working with is enhanced training. So in the budget book, you'll see a description for the enhanced training, about $500,000. And that is to help with the Institute and some other partners. We will help work on enhanced training for school resource officers and others who are connected to the safe passage work. Part of the conversation is making sure we have alignment between the crisis prevention, intervention, and de-escalation techniques, conflict resolution, some youth development approaches. So we will work with the team at the DME around the safe passage and the core group at the planning, the safe passage planning team around what that enhanced training looks like. And Commissioner Peeler has a question. How does safe passage designated blocks align to the location of OST? That is a good question. We can take a look. We've not actually mapped it. So we can do that, and I'll just make a note to follow up on that one. And most of the programs, the safe passage locations are in Ward 7 and 8. And we know there's definitely a need for OST programming in those communities. There's definitely a gap. And that is based off of federal funds for safe passage. Specifically, I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the OST budget for FY22 that we have proposed, that is proposed. So local dollars, it's level funding. In the budget book, there is a slight decrease of 152,000. That is a reduction of the New York Avenue shuttle. So if folks remember back in FY20 and then 21, no, FY20 and then into 21, we had budgeted to help the New York Avenue, the families staying at the New York Avenue shelters in order to get transportation to and from school. That shelter is no longer being used. The New York Avenue location is no longer being used as the short-term family housing has come online. And so that is the cut we will see in the budget book. And so there is no cut to the OST local budget. So our grant funds stay flat at the local level. There is an increase at the federal level. But as we think about local dollars, some of the things we're thinking about because of the federal dollars coming in is increasing the indirect rate or negotiating the indirect rate with the nonprofits. There's an actual law that will take place October 1 where federal funds must accept the federal indirect rate that is negotiated. We are looking at that and we'll be increasing our indirect rate in order to comply with the laws come October 1. We also proposed an OST scholarship program. This is in response to what we heard from listening sessions and families for the last few years around additional programming that may not be out there for specific targeted population, specifically at-risk youth with disabilities or at-risk youth with language as a second language. So we proposed a scholarship program to help individual families have access to funding to send their child to other providers that may not be funded by our OST grants. So this includes attending private programs if that is the best program to serve their child's need. It will only be targeted to at-risk youth, so there'll be an application process for the scholarship fund if this is approved in the budget. I see a couple questions come in, and if you want to come off mute, you can ask the questions like we normally do in a commission meeting. So Margot, do you want to ask your question?
Hi, sure. I was just wondering in regard to the training of the SRO, the additional funding you have for that. I know that there are some committees working on re-envisioning the role of school security and SROs as part of that. Is the OST office involved in any of those committees?
So this is coming from the Safe Passage Committee, who is working with those school resource officers. So it's been the DME team that has primarily sat in those committees and sometimes managed some of those committees. So we will be working with the DME's team to start attending those. Part of that grant is a full-time employee who would be responsible for attending those meetings and making sure there's alignment across the grant program with what is being said in those committee meetings.
Okay, and then with regard to the money that was eliminated for programming at the New York Avenue shelter, is the implication then that that money, it might have been used to provide programming at the new family shelters? Now there is no money for that? What's the status of that?
Yes,
New
that funding was actually for transportation only. It actually was not programming. It was to provide transportation to and from school and after school programs for families residing at the New York Avenue shuttle. So it was not programmatic at all. We continue to partner with DHS with our coordinating entity grant around trying to make sure there's programming close to the new shelters. Many of the shelters do not have community space for direct programming. And then we are continuing to work with DHS and ensuring there's other accessible programs for families staying at the shelter.
Thanks.
And then Commissioner Peeler, would you like to ask your question? I believe Commissioner Peeler is also maybe on the phone. So her question is, would families apply directly for the scholarship funds, or would OST work through an intermediary? OST will actually work through an intermediary for the program, just because of the scholarship fund and the models that are needed in order for the funds to pass through. So we will issue an RFA to find an intermediary or community foundation to help partner with us on the scholarship program. And again, this is pending approval of the budget. So these are ideas based off feedbacks we heard from the community, from the commissioners last time. So this is sort of our response to some of those listening sessions. And finally, we will develop a capacity building program for OST providers. So we will, actually, this will be a question later for this committee to talk about, but the funding and capacity building, capacity building committee will work on this a little bit further around what the capacity building program will look like. But we allocated some funds toward a program there. We heard really clearly from a lot of providers due to COVID the need to help around capacity building. And so we allocated some funds for a program there. And then federal funds, we are working on an MOU. It is, again, not secure. So everything is proposed and not committed yet. We continue to work with OSSI on managing the federal funds that are coming through for the 1% set aside for after school and the 1% set aside for summer. And so that's a total of 7.7 million over the next 3 fiscal year, 21, 22, and 23, 7.7 million. So the federal funds will require an evidence-based intervention, and that could be related to academics, social, emotional, and many other interventions, as long as it is evidence-based. And so part of the federal funds that we have designated, and this is what we heard related to targeting some of the funds, we will create a new partnership with DYRS to have some programming actually at the YSC Center, so serving those students directly in the juvenile justice system. We will increase the grant program for the coordinating entity, and we will increase the funds for general OST. Per year, it's about a little over 1 million during the summer and a little over 1 million in after school for the next 2 fiscal year 22 and 23 is how the funds are broken out. So it sounds like a lot of money, but it's not when you break it out across the fiscal years. So all of the RFA, well, the general school year RFA related to local funds, our plan is still to release that on June 4th, now that the budget is out. Once we have the MOUs established with OSSI, we will release a supplemental summer 21 RFA just to get some money out the door of any provider or current grantees. And then we will issue or tie it into, depending on when the MOU is signed, for the access to the federal funds. We hope the timing works out that we can do one RFA for both local and federal, and then internally manage those grant agreements separately. But we're waiting on some timing around the federal funds. Go ahead.
I'm curious because the evidence-based interventions for the federal funds, the federal standards for evidence-based are pretty complex to navigate, and I'm curious if that might be part of the capacity building program to support particularly smaller CBOs in navigating those.
Absolutely. So we, as part of the capacity building, it could be one of the things is working, and we had talked about that, I think, at the commission, the last meeting, working towards evidence-based. The other thing is having the research support the program model could tie, and as long as they have at least 2 rigorous evidence-based studies, it would qualify. We are also supporting the high impact tutoring, so partnership with CityBridge around any organization that wants to do tutoring, which is a method that has evidence behind it. So high impact tutoring, which is a citywide initiative that OST providers could institute high impact tutoring. And that is defined as tutoring sessions 3 times a week for at least 30 to 60 minutes, if I remember correctly. And CityBridge will be able to define that clearly, and they released an inquiry form this week for any CBOs that are interested in learning more, but they will provide resources to community-based organizations who are interested in doing the high impact tutoring. Additional questions related to the budget? If not, I am going to pose a question to the commission, as we always do, in order to open up discussions. And that one is if there are any specific, and Commissioner Spector kind of led to it in the capacity building and evidence base, is are there other ideas for the capacity building program, and or are there any changes to our proposed grant program? These are all, again, ideas that we have had. This is what we proposed in the FY22 budget based on feedback. So we would just love to hear your feedback in general around all the proposed program, and then any specific ideas around the capacity building program.
I'll jump in again. I really love what you were saying with the capacity building with the city bridge and the outreach, and that sounds like a really great thing to build upon. And I'd imagine that just as we think about these evidence-based interventions, that it could be useful really at all stages, with both like this outreach that you're already doing, helping folks with the actual application, as they start to launch this new model. Even the implementation of something like that is tricky because it's 3 times a week, but I'm assuming that means with the same student, which gets to a whole, like for programs that might have been drop-in programs before, that's a complete switch. So I would imagine like a lot of that transition with implementation would be, support would be really helpful.
Thanks, Commissioner Spector. Okay, commissioners, we're really quiet today.
So Heather Pillar, she put in the chat, I know she's on the phone again, but she said, what are the capacity building needs that the providers have said that they need?
Yeah, and we are looking to some of the specific topics. We've also within our own office identified some specific needs as well. So one, we've heard the need for additional mental health and trauma informed training, both for staff and for youth. And there is a big investment in mental health and trauma informed care at the school level. I've challenged Kevin and his team to continue to look at this as we think about the trainings that we will offer in FY22. We've also heard internally, we found the need to help more with financial management and just financial protocols in managing just grants. So part of our, we know for some of our small nonprofits, they come in with our grant with not having the infrastructure. So Deborah manages grant in particular, that we do a lot of hands-on training and feedback and just helping them manage and get to understanding the financial protocols so that they can find additional funding down the road. We know we oftentimes may be the first government grant that they received, and so we work with them over time to develop the infrastructure for that. And those are 2 that come top of mind. They have asked for additional funding for like indirect rate for some of the costs that cannot be associated directly to the program, and some of that has been, which is why we put it into the FY22 budget. So we'll know we have to have an allotment of the indirect going up. And a lot of that is because they are hiring staff, the cost of living has increased. So they've asked for a higher indirect rate. I think those are some of the big things capacity building wise. They did lose some staff. So again, as they try to build up or think about how they transition when something like COVID happens with staff leaves, things like that. But we would love to hear ideas from the commission, and then we will dive deeper at the committee level around some of those capacity building needs. And then Commissioner Peeler added more. What about growth strategic planning to support providers and closing the gap in access and availability in wards 7 and 8? We've not heard that, but we can add that to the list on scaling and growth.
Is there an idea to target some of the capacity building efforts more towards Ward 7 and 8 as well, or to perhaps smaller CBOs? Just thinking about who needs the capacity building versus the greatest ROI.
Yeah, so this is why we're asking the commission. We've not put a lot of framing around or development around the capacity building program. Bunny has taken lots of notes, as we will launch this in FY22. And that's why we'll take the ideas from this commission, like big ideas, and then we'll work at the committee level to dive deeper into the ideas. But I think that is also a good idea as we think about targeting it to organizations working in Ward 7 and 8 as a possibility.
I don't have a specific, I can't, I'm not sure I'm formulating this idea, but I feel as though summer programming is always an area where there's a tremendous need for more providers that can mount up in short, for a short period, a high quality program. That might be an area of capacity building as well, or to help organizations that are academic year programming and to figure out how to expand their services into summer programming as well.
If I heard you correctly, some capacity building support for organizations to offer summer programming more around short period of times. I will just admit from the evidence, right, part of the summer programming and what works to reduce learning loss is the dosage. And that has been, from the research, I believe, a minimum of 5 weeks. So that's why our grant has always been established around a minimum dosage of 5 hours a day, 5 days a week for 5 weeks. It was sort of related to the study Rand did on summer learning. And so the shorter period might just be an issue for, as we think about quality and the intent. So we would have to think about that.
I don't mean to, I'm not suggesting that we shorten the duration of summer programming, but I just think that it's one thing to develop and run over 10 months or a year. And it's another thing to develop a program that you need to basically start from zero and end in 5 weeks and to get it right. And I just think, that more organizations might consider that if they could work toward building that capacity.
Excellent. That we can add to the capacity building list around year-round, school year programming, working towards adding a summer program for that 5-week model. There are a couple questions in the chat coming through. Reverend Hill, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, just for the record, will the four banking entities, DHA and DHS, increase, there be more opportunities for other service providers to become coordinating entities?
We hope we will continue to work with DCHA and DHS. Our intent is to increase the coordinating entities. We also know based on the number of applications, it is we have to work with organizations to become coordinating entities. So we'll have to do some outreach, but the intent is to increase the number of coordinating entities.
Thank you.
And then I see Commissioner Holland has added some questions. And I don't know if that is because I need to move some commissioners over. Sorry, Commissioner Holland, we are making you join the team. I am sorry. I can't do multiple things at once, apparently, which is why you cannot unmute, but you should be able to unmute yourself now, Commissioner Peeler and Commissioner Holland.
Thank you. No, I mean, I wrote what I was just seconding what a couple other commissioners had said about targeting supports towards 7 and 8, and because there's real data that supports that. I was just going on record, but I couldn't figure out how to unmute. So thank you.
That was my error. I forgot to move you to the panel. Okay, any other final comments in terms of not just the capacity building program, but the new programs we're proposing, such as the Youth Scholarship Program, the partnership with DYRS, and then of course the increase in indirect rate. We hope you all support, we hope you support these ideas.
Just to clarify, the increase in indirect rate, does that just mean that there are more general ops funds available for organizations?
Correct.
Okay, okay, that's wonderful.
Yeah, we will honor the federal negotiated indirect rate. If organizations have a negotiated indirect rate with the feds, in particular, is the law come October 1. The law actually doesn't require us to do it with local dollars, but we will honor it as we continue to improve our grants program. And then it allows organizations, it does add, which we already comply with, just the de minimis rate of 10% for an indirect if there are organizations without it.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. There are no further questions for the OST team in our updates. I am going to just quickly jump back on the agenda. I see that our team member Malik Lang has joined us. Malik, can you provide just a quick introduction to yourself to the commissioners?
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me, I apologize for being late. I was having some technical difficulties, but I'm excited to join this OST team. Previously was executive director in Ward 7 at a nonprofit. I came on this team to support initiatives that supported our community. I'm excited to join this team since so far it's been an amazing experience. And I appreciate everything that I've learned so far in this short time I've been a part of this team. I'm excited to meet this commission and continue to work to support this organization and this team. And with that being said, I thank you all for taking the time to be here today. Again, I apologize again for missing the earlier part of this. I had some technical difficulties, but I'm excited to be here today. Thank you, Mala.
Thanks, Malik. Chairperson Peacock, we will turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Malik. Nice to meet you and welcome. It's good to have you. And Mila, thank you for the update from the office. Now, next item on the agenda, the OST Commission does have vacancies, so please share this link with your networks. We would love to fill these seats. Also, Commissioner Siegel, Hill, Taylor, and I are all in the reappointment process and can continue to participate while this process continues. MODA has provided an update that the reappointees are currently waiting for confirmation from the Office of Policy and Legislative Affairs. So just wanted to give everyone that update. Also, Commissioner Hecker has decided not to renew his term, so he's no longer going to be serving on the commission. So, if anyone wants to reach out and, say goodbye to him, just wanted to make everyone aware of that. Now, for the next item on the agenda, we do just have the updates for each committees. We're going to be resuming the individual committees soon in upcoming meetings. So the first committee is the Outcomes Committee. So Commissioner Spector, if you'd like to give any potential updates on that, that would be great.
Sure. Outcomes Committee is going to be meeting for the first time in nearly a year and a half next month. So excited to dive in and have been coordinating with Mila and the team on what we want to focus on, kind of in a post-pandemic light, and narrowing down some of the outcomes. So no specific updates, but we are excited to dive back in.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for the update. The next one is the Funding and Capacity Building Commission. So Commissioner Hill, would you like to provide an update on that?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Peacock, and good evening to everyone. I co-chair with Commissioner Crump, Funding and Capacity Committee. We were happy to meet with Mala and have formal introductions with Ms. Bowie and welcome her aboard in a smaller setting when we met on May the 6th. We're going to be continuing our meetings next month in June. We have a couple of dates we're really trying to decide on. June 22nd or June the 29th, we will convene those meetings. And we hope to discuss at that time our overview of the purpose as review our work plan in June. So thank you, Commissioner.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for the update. It's exciting that you guys are getting back on. Commissioner Berkey, would you like to provide the Quality Commission update? Or Quality Committee, sorry.
Yep. Quality Committee, like others, has touched base with my we did set a date for coming meeting. It's June 29th from 11 to noon. And I know that Kevin has reached out to just reconfirm that current members are still interested in serving on the committee. I think our next will be primarily work plan as well, and set some priority areas of focus for the coming months. So that's our update for now.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Commissioner Garrido, would you like to provide that Coordination and Collaboration Committee update for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
We are going to meet in, I think it's 2 weeks on June 10th. And Alex sent out that calendar invite. If you're on that committee and you did not receive it, then let us know. And if you want to join the committee, then let us know, because we can always use more brain power. But basically, when we meet, we're going to be reviewing our strategic plan working document. A lot of the goals that we had established when we last met, the timeline that we established obviously needs to be adjusted. So we will be working to make those adjustments and meet our goals.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's a great update. Okay. Sounds good. The main other thing is we are also looking for committee members for all of our committees. So please share the opportunity within your network if there's anyone that you think would be a good addition to any of the committees. So thank you. Now, the next commission meeting will be July 22nd, 2021 from 6 to 7:30 at the same time. And that next meeting will be virtual. However, government facilities are moving more towards reopening. So if anyone, has any issues with conducting the next meeting virtual, please feel free to voice those opinions. But for now, we're going to kind of move tentatively as things reopen to be on the safe side. Okay. Great.
And Chairperson Peacock, can I have one request for the commission? Since we will be looking for both the school year RFA, we'll be releasing it June 4th. and the additional supplemental grant for current summer grantees. We would love to have some help with grant reviewers. So please help us find additional grant reviewers if you can. And Alex sent the newsletter. It was in the most recent newsletter, which I believe all the commissioners are on. So if you can, just feel free to forward that call for reviewers in the, oh no, it wasn't in this newsletter. It was in the past newsletter, but we will send that out to the commission in our notes. Deborah, as she follows up with the notes from in the minutes from the commission meeting, will add the request to help us find additional reviewers. Or if you want to review quickly some of the supplemental RFAs that come in, we would love that help.
Yeah, I have a question, Mila, about the supplemental RFA. And is that specifically for summer work or grantees that have been awarded?
It will be, it's a invitation only RFA for the supplemental ESSER funds, so the American Rescue Plan funds for currently summer, anyone offering summer grants have or receive summer grants from the OST office. Because it has to be competitive, so that was already competed. So they can ask for an additional money, and this is for the just summer 21. Everything else will be competed next summer, and that tentatively is scheduled the summer RFA for late October.
So those dollars have already been allocated and set aside? The supplemental money?
Some of it has, and whatever's not used can be carried over because it's federal funds. So we have until FY23, the end of FY23 to use it. Any money remaining after FY23, we have a 12-month citing period to get them obligated and used as quickly as possible.
Okay. Yeah, I've just been thinking with regard to the mayor's summer guidelines, which is about 10 pages long with COVID guidelines and all of the protocols that have been set in place, and how some of our summer providers may need to hire additional staff just to monitor what she is, her guidelines for the summer with summer camp. So I was just thinking about the potential for additional resources. I know those supplemental dollars were already set aside, if you will, for previously selected grantees.
So the additional dollars will have to be for evidence-based interventions.
Interventions.
So they would be for new seats. So it can't enhance it can't add to the current grant. It needs to create new seats that is
Okay.
an evidence-based program. And that's part of the federal requirement on those.
Right, thank you. I didn't know what the requirements were. Thank you.
Yeah, more information as we finalize the MOU with OSSI and get additional information, we will release that. So these, again, are proposed things until everything's final. Nothing is actually committed, so there is no signed MOU yet. Our intent is to have that supplemental grant for the summer, and then we'll compete it out next year.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, sounds great. Let's see, are there any other further comments or questions? Okay, excellent. Well, it looks like we made great time on this meeting so far. Can we get a motion to adjourn from anyone?
Motion to adjourn? Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Who was that from?
It was simultaneous.
Simultaneous. Okay, so for the record, it looks like we had a unanimous motion to adjourn, seconded by Commissioner Peeler. So thank you. Those who approve the motion?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. I guess a better question would be, are there any who oppose or abstain? Okay.
We're getting quick approvals in the chat box.
Right.
So that's
Yeah.
fun.
So it looks like the motion to adjourn unanimously approved. So commissioners, thank you very much for your time. Looking forward to those committee updates. be great to get those going again. We're really excited. Milo, thanks for the great work from the OST office. Glad there's great things in motion there. So everyone also stay safe because city looks like it's off to a dangerous start to the summer. So glad everyone's still here with us. Thank you. Take care.